Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be demonstrating how to complete page 1, which focuses on the research. You're currently watching this video, so let's get into it. So for this challenge, you're going to be creating a laser engraved inequity charger or horse. The challenge: students will create an artwork that represents an example of social justice. These examples of inequalities will be symbolized with markers and colored pencils on a horse silhouette. So first, we need to define and talk about social justice. Fairness in terms of distribution of wealth, opportunities, and privileges within a society is defined as social justice. The view that everyone deserves equal economic, political, and social rights and opportunities. So, what we're going to be doing is learning a little bit about the difference from equal versus fair by watching this video. And we're also going to be looking at some examples of inequalities. There are many people who are discriminated against in this world. Some examples of discrimination and the focus of that can include race, gender, age, sexual orientation, religion, nationality, education, poverty, mental health, or even physical abilities. All of these are examples of what people target on other individuals for discrimination. One example, so let's go back to the presentation. If we look at the presentation, now you should know kind of the definition of social justice, and it's going to be your job to choose one of these different categories that people could be discriminated against. Now, you might not know exactly what we mean by discrimination or examples of discrimination for religion, for example, or poverty or other things. So what you can do is do some research in your internet browser and search for race discrimination, gender discrimination, etc. discrimination throughout all of these. Once you've spent several minutes researching all these topics, choose one, and then you can define the topic and list some examples here. You're next going to be looking in and defining these questions as well. Who, what, when, where, and why. So, for example, if you chose racial discrimination, you might be talking about George Floyd. With my example, George Floyd was an American man who was killed during a police arrest in Minneapolis, Minnesota in 2020. After his death, protests against police brutality, especially towards Black people, quickly spread across the United States and internationally. There was many examples of artwork that was created to respond to George Floyd's death and speaking out against racial discrimination. In my opinion, one of the contributing factors of George Floyd's death was the fact that he was an African American. In my opinion, I believe that if it was a different skin color, or maybe even not even a male, the end result would have been less likely. Art as therapy. Art, either creating it or viewing it, is used to help people explore emotions, develop self-awareness, cope with stress, boost self-esteem, and work on social skills. Drawing literal or abstract representations of what is stressing you out can help you express emotions that may be difficult to put into words. So, again, you don't have to choose racial discrimination or George Floyd, but in this example, I'm using this to kind of show how to complete the research in the brainstorm. So again, you'll be choosing a social justice topic. Again, I chose race. You can choose any of these. And then you're going to define and list some different examples of it. So, my example was racial discrimination, and list examples would be George Floyd or other individuals that might have been unfairly discrimination against due to race from police brutality potentially. And then you're going to define who, what, when, where, why, and how. So again, thinking a little bit about all these different things can help you dig a little bit deeper into your research. So who was it? Again, George Floyd. What happened? He died in police custody. When did it happen? May 2020. Where? Minneapolis, Minnesota. Why? Again, in my opinion, he died because he was African American and would have less likely died if he had a different skin color. And how did it happen? Again, you can talk a little bit about kind of what responded to that. The Black Lives Matter movement and other people speaking out against police brutality and unfairly discrimination against can be how you define these things. Again, you do not have to use racial discrimination, but there's many different options and opportunities to do that. When you're filling out, let's go back to here now. So what you're going to be doing on page 1 is, again, researching several different options, choosing one, for example, racial discrimination, and then defining it, and then listing different examples of it, and then choosing a particular person or group of people, what happened, when, where, why, and how, as a written response. Again, using this presentation as a resource.